Ever wonder why so many people swear SharkBite fittings are garbage, while other folks use them without a single problem? I'll tell you, 9 times out of 10, it's not the fitting that failed. It's the person who installed it. After 3 decades in the trade, I've seen every one of these mistakes ruin somebody's day, and sometimes ruin their ceiling, their basement, or their wallet. Today, I'm walking you through 10 fatal mistakes people make with SharkBite fittings, including one near number 8 that almost nobody thinks about until it's too late. And stick around for the bonus tip at the end, because that one alone could save you from a disaster. The first mistake on our list is not deburring the pipe before insertion, and this is the one I see more than any other. When you cut copper pipe, or PEX, or CPVC, that cut leaves a little ridge of material on the inside edge. Might not look like much, might not even feel like much if you run your finger across it. But here's the thing. Inside every SharkBite fitting, there's a small rubber O-ring, and that O-ring is what keeps your water where it belongs. When you shove a pipe in there with a burr still on it, that little ridge drags right across the O-ring like a tiny knife. It might not leak today. It might not leak next week. But give it a month or two under pressure, and that O-ring is going to weep. Then you've got a slow drip behind a wall or under a cabinet, and by the time you notice it, you're dealing with mold, rot, or worse. The fix is simple. After every cut, take a deburring tool or even a piece of fine sandpaper, and clean that inside edge until it's perfectly smooth. It takes about 10 seconds. Those 10 seconds are the difference between a fitting that holds and one that fails. The second mistake that gets people into serious trouble is using SharkBite on kinked or damaged pipe. Now listen, I get it. You're in the middle of a repair. You've already got the water shut off. The family's asking when the shower's coming back on, and you just want to get things connected and move on. So you look at that piece of copper that's got a little dent in it, or that section of PEX that took a bend a little too sharp, and you think, it's close enough. It's not close enough. SharkBite fittings need a perfectly round pipe to seal against. That O-ring I just mentioned sits in a circle, and it needs to contact the pipe all the way around, 360 degrees, with even pressure. A kink, a dent, a flat spot, even a slight oval from being stepped on, that breaks the seal. The fitting might feel like it grabbed, but water will find the gap. Always cut back past the damage to clean, round, undamaged pipe. If you don't have enough good pipe to work with, that's telling you something. That section needs to be replaced, not patched. The third mistake, and this is the one that causes the most dramatic failures, is not pushing the pipe in far enough. I've seen the photos online. Water shooting out of a wall, a fitting lying on the floor 3 feet away, and somebody standing there in shock, wondering what happened. What happened is the pipe wasn't fully seated. Inside a SharkBite fitting, there's a set of stainless steel teeth that grab the pipe, and behind those teeth is the O-ring that makes the seal. If you only push the pipe in halfway, those teeth might get a light grip, and it might even hold for a little while with no pressure on it. But the moment you turn the water back on and that system pressurizes, that fitting is going to blow right off the pipe like a cork out of a bottle. We're talking 40 to 80 pounds per square inch, pushing against a connection that was never fully made. The water damage from a blow-off like that can be catastrophic. I'm talking thousands of dollars in flooring, drywall, furniture, and whatever else is in the path. The solution is dead simple, and it leads right into the next mistake on this list. But first, you need to understand that every SharkBite fitting has a specific insertion depth, and it's different depending on the pipe size. For half-inch pipe, it's about 1 inch. For 3/4 inch, It's about 1 1/8 inches. You need to know that number before you ever pick up the fitting. By the way, if you're finding this advice helpful, do me a small favor and hit that subscribe button down below. I put out new videos like this one every week, walking you through repairs that'll save you a small fortune in plumber bills. Subscribing is free, and it's the best way to make sure you don't miss the next one. All right, let's continue. The fourth mistake is failing to mark the insertion depth on the pipe, and this goes hand in hand with what I just talked about. SharkBite actually includes a little depth gauge tool in some of their packaging, and you can also buy one separately or just download the chart from their website. But here's what I want you to do every single time. No exceptions. Before you push that pipe into the fitting, take a permanent marker or a piece of tape and mark the pipe at the exact insertion depth. That way, when you push the pipe in, you can look at your mark and see whether it disappeared into the fitting or whether it's still showing. If your mark is still visible, the pipe isn't in far enough. Simple as that. This takes 5 seconds and costs you nothing. I have seen guys skip this step because they think they can feel when it's fully seated. You can't. Not reliably, not every time. Mark the pipe. Every single time. You'll thank me later. The fifth mistake on our list is using SharkBite fittings in inaccessible or buried locations, and this one can get you in real trouble beyond just a leak. Most plumbing codes in most jurisdictions require that mechanical fittings, which is what SharkBite fittings are, remain accessible for inspection and maintenance. That means you can't bury them inside a finished wall with no access panel. You can't put them underground. You can't encase them in concrete. Now, I know what some of you are thinking. The manufacturer says they can be used behind walls, and technically, some local codes do allow it in certain circumstances. But between you and me, even if your code allows it, think about what happens 5 years from now if that fitting develops a slow leak. If it's behind drywall with no access panel, you won't know about it until the damage is already done. And when the insurance adjuster shows up and sees a push-to-connect fitting buried in a wall with no access, that's going to be a conversation you don't want to have. If you're going to use SharkBite, put it where you can see it, reach it, and check it. Behind an access panel is fine. Under a sink is fine. In an unfinished basement ceiling, perfect. But don't hide it and forget about it. The sixth mistake is not removing the inner tube liner when working with soft copper or PEX. And I'll tell you, most people don't even know this piece exists. When you use SharkBite fittings on rigid copper pipe, you don't need anything extra. The pipe is stiff enough to hold its shape inside the fitting. But PEX tubing and soft copper tubing are flexible. They can compress and deform under the pressure of those internal teeth and the O-ring. That's why SharkBite makes a little insert called a tube liner, or sometimes people call it a stiffener. It's a small metal or plastic sleeve that slides inside the end of the pipe before you push it into the fitting. It keeps the tube perfectly round so the O-ring can do its job. If you skip this piece, the pipe can collapse slightly inside the fitting, and you'll get a restricted flow at best and a leak at worst. Some SharkBite fittings come with the liner already built in for PEX applications, but not all of them. Check the package. If it says you need a liner, use the liner. Don't skip parts that the manufacturer tells you to use. Now, the seventh mistake is one that I feel strongly about, and that's using SharkBite as a permanent fix in high-risk areas. Here's the thing. I'm not one of those guys who says SharkBite fittings are worthless. They have a place. If you've got a burst pipe at 2 in the morning and water is pouring into your basement, a SharkBite coupling can stop that flood in about 30 seconds, and that's genuinely valuable. For a temporary repair, for an emergency, For a spot where you can monitor it, they're a reasonable tool. But I've seen people run an entire repipe of their house with nothing but SharkBite fittings. I've seen them used behind finished tile showers. I've seen them used on the supply line feeding a second-floor bathroom, where a failure would cascade down through every room below it. That's where I draw the line. For permanent connections in critical locations, especially behind finished surfaces or anywhere a failure would cause severe damage, soldered copper or properly crimped PEX with copper rings is still the right answer. SharkBite is a tool. Use it like a tool. Don't use it like a shortcut. The eighth mistake on our list is over-trusting SharkBite on hot water lines near heat sources. And this is the one I told you about at the top that almost nobody thinks about. Every SharkBite fitting uses a rubber O-ring to create its seal. Rubber degrades with heat. That's just material science. Now, SharkBite fittings are rated for up to 200 degrees Fahrenheit, and most residential hot water systems run well below that. So, under normal conditions, you're fine. But here's where it gets tricky. If you put a SharkBite fitting within a few inches of a water heater, or right next to a boiler return line, or anywhere that radiant heat from an appliance is constantly warming that fitting beyond what the water inside is doing, you're accelerating the aging of that O-ring. I've seen fittings near water heaters that looked fine on the outside, but had O-rings that were hard, cracked, and brittle when you pulled them apart. The fitting was only 3 years old. Now imagine that same fitting behind a wall where you can't see it. If you're connecting to or near a water heater, do yourself a favor and use a proper dielectric union or a soldered connection for that last stretch. Let SharkBite do the work in the middle of the run, where temperatures are stable, not right at the heat source. The ninth mistake is mixing incompatible pipe types without the correct transition fitting. I've seen this one at the hardware store more times than I can count. Somebody's got copper pipe on one side and PEX on the other side, and they grab a standard SharkBite coupling off the shelf, thinking it'll connect anything to anything. And in some cases, a standard SharkBite coupling can connect copper to PEX because the outside diameters are the same for the same nominal size. But that's not always the case with every material. CPVC has a different outside diameter than copper in some sizes. And if you're dealing with polybutylene, which is that old gray pipe from the 1980s and early 1990s, you need a specific SharkBite fitting made for that material. The teeth and O-ring geometry are different. If you use the wrong fitting on the wrong pipe, it might seem like it grabbed, but the seal won't be reliable. Always read the packaging. SharkBite clearly labels which pipe types each fitting is compatible with. If you're transitioning between two different materials, make sure the fitting you're buying is rated for both. Take your time on this one. 5 extra minutes in the plumbing aisle beats 5 hours cleaning up a leak. The 10th and final mistake is reusing a SharkBite fitting after removal. I understand the temptation. These fittings aren't cheap. A single SharkBite coupling can run anywhere from $5 to $12 depending on the size. And if you've got a handful of them in your repair, that adds up. So when you pull one off to adjust something, the natural instinct is to just push it right back on and keep going. Here's why you shouldn't. When you remove a SharkBite fitting, you're dragging the pipe back through the teeth and across the O-ring. Those teeth can get bent or flattened slightly. The O-ring can get nicked, rolled, or pick up debris. You might not see the damage with your eyes, but at a microscopic level, the sealing surface may be compromised. Now, SharkBite themselves say their fittings can be removed and reused. And in a pinch, if you pull one off and immediately put it back on the same pipe, and it's clean and undamaged, you'll probably be okay. But probably is not the word I want to hear when we're talking about pressurized water inside my house. My rule is simple. If I remove a SharkBite fitting, I replace it with a new one. The cost of a new fitting is $5. The cost of a leak behind a cabinet is $5,000. That math is easy. All right, now for the bonus tip I've been holding on to, and this one is worth the wait. Before you ever install a SharkBite fitting on a repair, do yourself a favor and do a dry test first. What I mean is, before you turn the water back on, push the pipe into the fitting, check your depth mark, and then try to pull the pipe back out by hand with a firm tug. Don't twist it. Just pull straight back. If the fitting is properly engaged, that pipe should not move. You should feel those teeth gripping solid. If the pipe slides or wiggles at all, something is wrong. Either the pipe isn't in far enough, or the pipe is out of round, or there's debris interfering with the teeth. This one simple test takes 3 seconds and tells you whether your connection is solid before a single drop of water ever hits it. I started doing this on every SharkBite connection I made, and I've never had one fail on me. Not once. It's the kind of thing nobody tells you, but once you know it, you'll never skip it. That's how my Uncle Ray taught me, and that's how I'm teaching you. Before you go, if you got something out of this video, do me one last favor and hit that subscribe button. I put out new videos every week covering real-world plumbing repairs, money-saving tips, and the kind of know-how that takes years to pick up on the job. Subscribing costs you nothing, and it makes sure these videos show up in your feed when you need them. Thanks for watching, and I'll see you in the next one.